Let's talk further about the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and that briefing that he gave today. Bring in political analyst Khanyi Makubane. Khanyi, welcome back to The Full View. Let's start first with the issue of a reset of the Government of National Unity, broadening basically, if you will, participation by possibly bringing in other organizations into the GNU. I wonder if that'll strengthen the quality of debate or just add to the noise.
Good evening, Fikile. You know, it's not as easy as press Control Alt Delete and reset, because I think that any decision to change the current configuration of the GNU must pass through the current GNU partners. And what the ANC is silent on currently is what the next step is going to be, because obviously the NEC has made a proposal that it's sending to its representatives within the GNU that we need to broaden the scope. And that's all well and good to make the proposal, but in terms of effecting that, they need the buy-in of their partners within the GNU. And I'm not sure if the DA, the IFP, or the PA, or any of the other parties at the moment want to cut their influence, to be less than what it currently is, because to broaden the scope means to create space, and that may mean less seats in cabinet, that may mean less levels of representation. And Tamegela, what this points to is the importance, the absolute importance of the GNU moving past a statement of intent. As Fikile has alluded to, that they need to strengthen the functioning of the statement of intent. And, not to sound like a broken record, but I've been saying that we needed to be at a stage of promulgation of the GNU Act as we speak, because a statement of intent is not good enough. It's a statement, and it's a set of documents that give us an arrangement of how this is going to work. But we need to move past it. I know that Mbalula said that the GNU is not a permanent structure. It's a tactical structure that is there to facilitate and to implement the ANC's agenda of, transformation. However, the DA sees it very differently. They see themselves in a partnership with the ANC. They see themselves as saying, chap, we are in this position together because none of us got a majority. We are not here to implement your policies. We are here because you failed to get a majority.
On that point then, Khanyi, do you read the ANC's position on this reset basically as an attempt to bring into the fold, if you will, more ideologically aligned parties, so that even if it reaches that final battle with the DA, which it has squabbled with a lot in the last 12 months or so, it's got enough friends in the room to make a deal where protests by the DA, if you can put it in that way, would be meaningless, would not be able to prevent any movement on legislation or changes to cabinet even?
Well, I think that we can use one example of the EFF, right? We know that the EFF didn't make it into the GNU the first time around because, of whatever reasons and whatever way that discussions went behind the scenes. However, the EFF has, I think, gone a long way to proving to the ANC that it's a trustworthy partner. We can just look at what recently happened in the city of Johannesburg, where the DA failed to pass a motion of no confidence against Mayor Dada Morero, and the ANC was able to win that directly because of the EFF's 29 seats, in the council. And we've seen many other areas where the EFF has worked, to effect decisions on behalf of the ANC. And in broadening the space for the GNU, I think it only makes sense that we can guess and our suspicions can be confirmed later. But I definitely think they are trying to make provisions for the EFF more than anything. And we then will see the other smaller parties, those are 1-2-seaters that don't really have influence, that much currently. They're still in their growth phase, or they just didn't get those numbers. But the EFF definitely, I think, is the forerunner in terms of that broadening of the GNU.
Has the political ground shifted enough, do you think, for the EFF, for instance, to be brought into the GNU? Because we remember at its very initial stages, talks between the ANC and the EFF collapsed. I remember Nomvula Mkonyane speaking quite candidly about how they were berated by an EFF delegation led by the party's then Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, one of the issues the EFF has had, for example, is that it does not want to be part of a coalition that includes the DA, for instance. So is that not a deadlock, that last part especially? Because the DA at this stage is not leaving.
Well, typically, what was a, what would I call it? What was a make it or break it back then could be a negotiable now. That's the nature of politics. You know, the main reason why those talks collapsed was because the EFF did not want to be in any structure that involved the DA. But then that sent them straight into political oblivion. You know, they were in the periphery of the national level of governing, and they had the opportunity to be there. We know that definitely, you know, at a provincial and a local level, the EFF has greater authority in terms of the number of people that it has, its political actors. But at a national level, that is still the area where they really want to go to. So I think that now they are more amenable, you know, to having those discussions, because they have seen the consequences of having parties that have ideological differences playing out, whether we're looking at the 15% VAT, the firing of the minister. There have been many issues that have tested the DA and the ANC, and somehow they've made it over those issues. And I think that is sending a signal to the EFF that it's never either or, make or break, that in politics you have to compromise and you have to think of the long-term goal and what you want to gain out of it. And I think that the EFF is definitely more open and willing to negotiate more than it was back then.
And very briefly then, you've got the issue of the SACP, Mbalula admitting today that the ANC may be at a point where it cannot convince its long-term partner in the Tripartite alliance to basically not contest elections separately in the next 12 months or so. If the SACP does do that, is this ultimately the beginning of a split in the Tripartite alliance?
Well, I think we can draw to what relations have been like in the KZN area, for instance, of the Tripartite alliance tensions. We know that Bonisa Duma and his leadership, they have been at loggerheads with the Tripartite alliance. Last year, we saw the provincial leaders of the SACP and COSATU hosting media briefings talking about how they are just not seeing eye to eye. And quite frankly, I think that after 30 odd years, it's okay, you know, for the ANC to think of a post-tripartite era, because it's very clear that the SACP is not going back. Now, how is this going to hurt either party? The SACP, I think, may be pleasantly surprised, or actually just surprised, to see that they may not garner as many votes as they think they are going to garner, you know, because they represent, you know, the labor and the labor force. You know, those are traditional ANC voters that have relied on their leaders, you know, to continue emphasizing the need of labor parties or the labor force to support the ANC. And in the absence of that, the ANC is definitely going to fill that gap. And we can only hope that that 1.5 million members in good standing will be enough to make up the gap that will be left by the departure of the SACP. However, on the other side, I also don't think the SACP is going to perform as well as they assume they will, because for the longest time, their agenda has been in labor, their agenda has been advocacy, their agenda has been in policy. So now when they want to go into issues of governance, isn't that moving away from their agenda? Yes, of course, we know they'll always be working or fighting for workers' rights within any political structure or any governance structure that they occupy. But the question is it enough to draw in the voters?
Kanyima Kubane, political analyst, good to talk to you tonight on The Full View.